All right. Hi, my name is Rado. I'm a digital marketing strategist, and I would like to go through your one pager that I was requested to make. So, first of all, I have to say that uh, I worked with a couple of SaaS companies in the past, together with the team members, brands like Hotjar, ManageAd, Beyond, GetResponse, and we also made a couple of methodologies related to predict lifetime value optimization. So if you're interested, I'm happy to share this presentation with you and talk about like how we see work and optimization done differently for a SaaS company. So first of all, as you can see, this is your one pager. There are a couple of things that we prepared for you. I validated the points, and I talked with one team member to discuss the concepts and ideas that were collected. Additionally, here in the bottom, there are additional materials that I will go through in a few minutes. As you can see, there are a lot of charts that will be helpful to tie back to specific points in the one pager. So the situation, based on the information I received, is that more or less we are looking for a one pager with a strategy to identify specific likely blockers, North Star board metrics that are needed, and basically to make sure that this is already established and that you have that implemented in your team. Some tests that could be validated to validate scale readiness. So there are like few things that could be a good idea. Of course, these are just ideas because we don't know your specific situation. To do that, to know the specific situation that you're in, what's needed is to get familiar with your data and run something called a quick look, or maybe a full analysis of what you do, and take a deep dive into your data and validate everything. A quick look is just a method for us to really take a look at all the data, all of the platforms that you have access to, and validate what's going on. The full analysis is basically coming up with analyzing everything, validating everything, and then at the end of the day, make a list of priorities, tests, changes, tools, solutions that we believe if you go, or we go and implement these priorities, the growth will be possible to be unlocked and to successfully move forward to achieve the goals that are ahead of your business. Okay, so at the end, we have 30, 60, 90. These are the moves that we think that could be done in the, let's say, 6 months since you take over the CMO role. Maybe you're already in the 6 months. It's okay. Maybe you will have some ideas that will come up to your mind based on this one pager. It's all speculation. And based on our experience and businesses we've seen in the past, that these are the moves and ideas that we think could be good ideas. All right, so the first one is North Star and board metrics. I believe that sales accepted opportunities, or SQLs, that's something that is needed to be sure that is mapped well and the pipeline is there and velocity. All these metrics are measured and you can look and go through that kind of dashboard and data really easily and fast. Second is new ARR and expansion ARR of existing logos. This is the most important related to marketing. It's new customer acquisition payback period in days, by channel, like hopefully by channel. The minimum is to know by cohort how long does it take to pay back the cost of acquired customers with even blended spend across the whole marketing. And then what is the result? The result should be also the marginal ROI. So you could know if you add additional dollars, what's the potential return on investment on the other side. So having some kind of basic and simple models and spreadsheets that will allow you to, or even apps that will allow you to calculate these two metrics is needed to more or less evaluate the state of marketing and how much you should spend and how ready you are to scale. Then there's activation and usage. These are internal metrics related to your business: eNPS, trend bands, team participation, pools completion, manager activation rate. This is all related to the characteristic of like how users use your app, how businesses use your app. Okay, so moving on, churn risk. This is SaaS related. These are SaaS related metrics. It's something to just know what's going on. One more that I added just before starting recording is attribution fixing. In my opinion, that's one that could be considered basically account-based attribution or analytics together with activation. These are solutions like Dream Data or Hockey Stack. They help to map different stakeholders in companies, sharing links, participating in demos, and then you can map out the whole customer journey of like how specific logo interacted with your website and sales team members, sales reps, and so on, based on your CRM data and web analytics data. Okay, so likely blockers in the first 6 months. I assume that the questions are often related to retargeting and brand search that are over-credited, assuming that you have paid search, because what we've seen is that you have very high visibility in the Nordics, but the visibility outside of the US, outside of the Nordics is quite limited. I think that we'll cover that in a second. Assuming that you have quite robust paid search and retargeting, that's usually that inflates ROAS, that inflates customer acquisition cost. I mean, decreases artificially a customer acquisition cost coming from paid traffic, which is a weak outcome basically. MQL volume masking weak demo, that's something to be also investigated as a CMO. Just making sure that there are no gaps in trust building between as part of the demo process and how fast the demo is delivered. What are the transcripts of these demo meetings and so on? And so is it possible that there is an ICP drift, maybe too much small businesses without budget? Then there is attribution bias from content syndication and partner directories. That's something that also often happens quite often, that, G2 platform review, they are usually the last touch points. And if someone uses Google Analytics as an attribution platform, it causes users to be it causes marketing to think that these are the most important sources or content syndication platforms, which is not true, because maybe this lead came from paid search. That was their first interaction. Second interaction was partner directory. Then there's friction in demo flows. This is something we covered, using AI note-taker recording analysis plus 30 transcripts, learning what's the process, really understanding what are the challenges that people have and what kind of questions they ask during the demo is also really connected to marketing. So the two tests that we think that could help you in the first 90 days would be retargeting holdout. So really geo split. One city or one region has retargeting, heavy retargeting, another one doesn't have at the same time. And then you compare these two. Of course, it has to be statistically valid. There has to be enough impressions and clicks. And so then another one is brand search, geo split. So that's another one to optimize paid search. These are maybe with your scale of activity and visibility not that relevant, but with time for large brands, this is really relevant, and it is an important question, like how you could shift capital invested in these two categories to something more efficient and giving you higher return. The third one is interesting, alt if partner heavy. So that's a test, and a test that we've never done, but I think that it makes sense. A lot of leads come from platforms like Partnerbase or Crossbow or other B2B partnership platforms and directories. And it makes sense to invest heavily in, let's say, a city they have one city which is of a specific size that that you have a certain amount of leads, or region or country, and deploy that partner-based strategy and invest heavily in building a partnership in specific country, and then compare these two countries. How do they go? In one, you, let's say, invested heavily. You didn't invest at all. In second, you invest heavily in partnerships, and then you look at the outcome, and you see that actually from partner base, you really had quite significant uplift with just human capital as cost. Some person who's responsible for partnerships could try to scale specific country, and that's a good way to verify if, and also of course deploy PR mentions, some kind of content and so on in that specific geo. That will allow you to also recognize what's the true impact of that specific methodology in some region. So then you've got 30, 60, 90 moves, a summary. So first, source of truth data, analytics plus CRM, that's dream data or hockey stack, rebuild definitions, validate them, learn everything you can about the way how data flows, and know the definitions, know the data sources, and blend it together, maybe in something that is based on the winning by design methodology, bowtie, prospect, MQL, SQL, commit, live, ARR, LTV, land and expand. Basically, this is an example of a good dashboard that is possible to build together. That's, as you can see, here's the data, key KPIs, the size of the companies each year acquired, each month acquired. Some of them are self-served, some of them are supported with demo calls and sales reps, how many live chats, how many trials, qualified, unqualified leads, demos done, opportunities, new customer as a result, new MRR by source. You can break it down even further, but this is a very basic dashboard. MRR, ARR, and so on. Expected lifetime value using your formula that you know the best, what's your lifetime value, and then evaluating what's the ratio between customer acquisition cost and lifetime value. And as you can see over here, this is like a good example of fake data that is quite helpful. And I think that every company should have a dashboard like this one, presenting the most important information in columns in this very basic spreadsheet with definitions of like how each metric is calculated. So this is something I call source of truth that is critical. That's 30 days to validate that. And if not ready, then find a vendor that can deliver that kind of work. Then there is 60. This is all about identifying the marginal ROI on marketing spend, deploying new channels, lift tests, or brand or retargeting optimization lift tests to know what's the baseline without retargeting, without brand, without paid search in specific locations, without so on, without other, let's say, any options. Depends like how robust is your media mix and how much visibility you have through these channels. Based on what I've seen below, you don't have that much of visibility when it comes to SEO. This is you versus top competitors globally. As you can see, the average value of the traffic, which a proxy for how much you would have to spend. So this is like from 150,000 to even 500,000 by different competitors. So looking at that, it feels clear to me that you have to also invest in an SEO audit to really try to replicate content strategy, because content that is also ready for large language models optimization for ChatGPT and Gemini, because this is how people search today. Also, what I've seen is YouTube strategy, which is great. A lot of that content is in Swedish. That makes situation a bit more tricky, but AI feeds on YouTube videos a lot and transcripts. This is a great that you produce that. But all that you'd have to translate into content on the page that translates into Google Classic traffic and visibility, and also visibility in large language models. What's going on in search is also an overall demand is this HR tool, feedback platform, employee surveys, people analytics, HR platform. All of them exploded in 2025. This is crazy important. This is globally. This is the United States, and you are not spending too much on trying to capture that extra available traffic, which makes sense to try to capture as much as possible. So that's why the second 60 is about testing and knowing when to spend money and where to invest. And in my opinion, it should be all related to reverse engineering content, GEO, AI, SEO strategy of top competitors. Maybe deploying some test budgets to try to capture as much as possible from that extra traffic. Plus, in here we've analyzed the seasonality of your industry, of these keywords. These are Google Trends keywords, like demand, like how it looks on average in the last 5 years. And as you can see, Q4 is pretty strong, Q1 is pretty light. That makes sense. Here's the proposed weekly budget allocation to try to allocate money and capital where the demand is the highest. If we combine that with the fact that it's still exploding, it didn't drop, it's just there is no data for the last month, and I think it's still pretty high. So this industry is absolutely booming. So that absolutely makes sense to go and scale as much as possible and try to capture that and see what's the customer acquisition cost. And besides that, having the source of truth and having the data coming from Google Trends and try to map how much of that demand you can capture with paid search, and is that CAC acceptable versus expected lifetime value. Try to map best, base, or worst error bands, scale on a marginal ROI, set some rule. This is just pure speculation. Set some rule like how much you can spend, and you assume based on the lifetime value what's going to be the ROI of the paid media or SEO, and then have guardrails in place if in case some CAC explodes during specific weekend or a week, then you cut back and you wait for the better demand available out there on the market to deploy then when it's when the customer acquisition cost is not that high. And of course it all depends on the ad creatives, landing pages, the storytelling that your brand represents. But I think that that's what I see in the just one simple quick take. And this is our one pager, so that you could take it and pick the ones that you think make sense. The next steps from our side, if you would like to meet and discuss possible cooperation, one would be SEO audit, how to deploy content strategy that will allow you to compete on international markets. Second, reverse engineering top competitors, what they've done in the past, so that you could quickly catch up. Third, try to capturing some of the extra available demand on the market. I guess most of the competitors, they're spending more or less the same as they did in the past. That means that maybe CPAs went down over the last 1 year. Maybe they also scaled, but I think that usually the budgets are set for the whole year, so maybe if you're flexible, you can capture more. And I would go for tests of different, scale readiness. These tests can change, but absolutely having that kind of strategy of geo holdout tests and knowing what's the baseline versus what's the extra incremental impact of specific strategy, that all makes sense. And if you don't have a dashboard like this one, that's absolutely a must as well, or maybe an audit of your existing infrastructure. Okay, that's all. Thanks a lot, and hopefully see you